Super Nintendo World is the Mario-themed section of Universal Studios. Now, my family actually just recently went on a trip to the Hollywood version of the park, and it really is like you're just in the Mushroom Kingdom. Now, I loved my time at the park, so I have drawn Super Nintendo World in the style of the map screen of Super Mario World. That's the 1990 Super Nintendo classic in which you play as the Mario Brothers on a quest to save Peach and a bunch of Yoshis from Bowser. Let's get gamified. Woohoo! Hey guys, I'm Andrew Robinson of Robinson Pixels. Now in Super Mario World, on the map screen, there's this really big border kind of going around it. So I decided that I would draw the entire park within that border. So let's go ahead and pull that up. All right, so everything is gonna fit within this 222 by 166 pixel border. I'm gonna start with Peach's castle, and to do that, I'm gonna reference this fortress sprite from the game. Now, this is a 16 by 16 block, which is kind of the sizing they use for almost everything on the map screen within the game. You actually enter the park by walking through a warp pipe into Peach's castle, and then that opens up to the rest of the park, which I thought was kind of cool. And now for the sprite of the castle here, I made it twice the size of that fortress sprite, just because of course I wanted it to look kind of big and impressive. And I shaded it kind of the same way that they did, with highlights on the left, shadows on the right. And I did a couple little pixels here for Peach's stained glass window, which I thought was kind of fun. Next up, I'll be drawing Toadstool Cafe from the park, which is a little restaurant you can eat at. And I'm using a ghost house from the game just as the base so I can get the sizing right. It didn't take too much to actually convert it to a toad house because it's not very large, you know, and they're both pretty small. It's gonna get a lot more complicated after this though. Before we get too complicated, first we just need a warp pipe. You see there's this really big yellow warp pipe at the park that actually is a gift shop and also the exit from the one ride that they have. So I took an original warp pipe and just kind of messed around with editing it. I decided that it should actually be sideways based on the orientation of how I was gonna do the map. Before I do anything else though, I need to draw in a gazebo. It's literally just a gazebo. I assume it's for like Princess Peach photo ops or something like that. I didn't see her there, but that seems like a good place to do it. Now we need to do the polar opposite of a gazebo. Bowser's Castle. I don't know why I said it. I brought in Peach's castle here to use as the base and immediately started drawing right over it. Bowser's head is over there on the side just so I could have a good frame of reference. But the castle at the park is actually the entrance to the Mario Kart ride, which I thought was a pretty cool little touch, you know? You gotta walk through his big open mouth to get there. It's not actually the start of the line though, so I'll have to add that in a minute. But I thought this was like a cool little touch for you to be able to enter through, you know, Bowser's castle. If you notice these little dithering patterns that I used here on the bricks, I did do that because they used dithering on the bricks in Bowser's Fortress within the game, which is different from these little fortresses that they also had. And you might notice too that I used two different style of the kind of top blocks for the castle. I used little bitty ones for the towers and larger ones here. I think it helps differentiate the way the structure is built a little bit more to help you kind of visually get some rest. And also I brought in some shading here using just that solid black. There was a limited color palette within the game, so I didn't want to add extra colors to it, but I still needed some more depth. So I played around with extra black pixels here to kind of help sell that this is a little bit more 3D in certain areas. Now with the biggest castle on the map finished, it was time for a smaller version, which is Bowser Jr.'s castle. I brought in this little tower right here. It's funny in the games how they have different perspectives for all the different stuff on the map. They didn't seem too concerned with everything lining up exactly the same way, which is fine, and it is its own version of consistency, a lack of consistency. Now, as for this castle actually existing within the lore of the park, if you buy the extra little power-up band, you can actually play this Bowser Jr. extra thing. Basically, the idea is he stole this golden mushroom and he's locked it within this tower. So in order to get that golden mushroom from him, you actually have to like defeat his minions and get the keys to do it. So that's pretty cool, and I'll add a little keyhole onto the door here later to kind of help sell the idea that that's what's going on right here. And this little green pipe right here is actually going to be the entrance to the Mario Kart ride. The only thing that's really different about it from a regular pipe, aside from it being giant and human-sized, is it's got these little checkers right here to kind of let you know, oh, that's where you go for the race. After getting that done, it was time for our first character. It's Yoshi. Look, this is the official sprite from the game, okay? Don't blame me on this one. This is what he looks like. Now, granted, he was supposed to have Mario or Luigi on him. You don't normally see him like that in the game. So this is what he would look like, which is, it's an improvement. But I popped Yoshi over here onto the map, and of course I did go ahead and give him a little bit of stuff, you know, some arms and his little saddle and spikes so that he looks a little more Yoshi-fied since there's not a Mario in the way. Now in the park, he's actually walking back and forth up on this mountaintop, so I will be animating him. And that'll be later in the video. Let's go ahead and do another character. There's actually a ton of enemy characters and stuff in the park, and they're all moving around and all kind of cool stuff. I decided that the only ones I would draw would be the ones that are used in that whole little Bowser Jr. challenge. Now, in the park itself, the Goomba is balancing on this rolling log, so I stuck one under there that's actually from one of the bridges within the game. And also, you may have noticed I edited him a little bit because Super Mario World has Galoombas and not Goombas. So let me go back. So this is what he did start out as, and I changed him a little bit so he looks a little more Goombish rather than Galoombish. This works for now. Let's go ahead and get back to the park itself. There's some other pipes involved. This one right here is used by a different enemy for one of the games, so I'll add him in a minute and talk about how that works later on. Now that bottom pipe right here is actually the exit from the park. Kind of need to know where that one is, but of course I don't even have much of a park yet, so let's work on fleshing this thing out a little bit. My philosophy here was to actually use Super Mario World tiles wherever possible, but realistically that wasn't super possible. Mario World is set up as a very naturalistic sort of environment, and this park is set up a little bit more like the new Super Mario Bros. Games. It's very blocky. So I had to make a lot of new tiles from scratch here to make this really work out. In fact, I'd say like the vast majority of what you're gonna see is stuff that I built. And you might actually notice this blank area up here. That's where the main character of the game goes, like when you're playing as Mario or Luigi. So I will be adding a character up there later. It's gonna be the new character who was introduced for the park itself. Now there's also a piranha plant I added down here. That's actually an unused tile from the games, but we're actually gonna focus on this Koopa right here as our next enemy. This is the official Koopa sprite from the game. I went ahead and shrank it down to 16 by 16 so it would fit alongside the other characters from the map screen. I also had to, reshape him a little bit since I lost some details when I did that. And I put a black outline around him. Now in his game, you're actually hitting like a POW block to knock a shell back and forth. So I had to build out a little POW block right here. Back to the map. The park has all these different sections within it. Up in this top corner is actually like the ice world section of the map. And on the other side, there's eventually gonna be like a desert section as well. So it's kind of neat how they did that. Yoshi up here is actually on a mountain that's supposed to look really tall, so I'm gonna have to do some tricks to make that look like it's really large given the small size of this map that we're working with. Oh, and I've got this little Bowser head thing down here so I could use the colors and stay consistent within the style. Now right over here, there's actually some binoculars, and those are cool because if you go to them and look through them, they've got like a little AR filter on it, so you can actually see little digital characters walking around the park, so that is a neat little touch. Now up to this point, I had been kind of copying and pasting all of the ground tiles and moving them around manually like that. It was not very efficient, so I finally just figured out how to actually build a tile set in Pixquare, which a sprite can do too, and I gotta tell you, it's a lot easier when you can just move your tiles around and say, I want a corner here and here and here, and not have to redraw it or click and drag and copy and paste. So definitely familiarize yourself with those types of tools if you've got software that can do it. Something I found when we got to this point was that, I hated it. And part of that was because it was too blocky. So I actually went through and I added new tiles to round out all of these corners. I really feel like that helps this to look more natural. And same for these ground tiles up here along these borders. Much more clear and realistic to me, so I liked that like a lot better. Next enemy is a thwomp. And the game has thwimps that are already in the size that I need. So I took a thwimp and I edited the face to look more like a thwomp, and that works well enough for me. Next up, we're actually gonna look at this little piranha plant down here. in the park, that one's another key guard, and he's actually like in a fenced-in area. So I decided to represent that by using the same tiles as the pyramids over here. Now he looks a little bit closed off. Next up is going to be resizing this Goomba a little bit. I feel like he's kind of giant looking compared to everybody else, so I moved him next to the piranha plant, shrank him down a little bit more, and I feel a lot better about how he looks that way instead. Now, I think these mountains are actually a pretty nice touch, which they have those at the park itself, like little fake mountains in the background. It looks better than this tree. This is an actual tree from the game. I'm not a huge fan of the faces. I think they look a little creepy. So I redrew the tree to look, you know, more like just a normal tree, because they've got normal trees around the park. And once I had it together, I added those trees around the park and also added a bunch of little pipes that are just directly from Super Mario World. Now up here in this corner, of course, we can't use regular trees. That would be ridiculous. We need little pine trees. So I just reshaped the one that I had into a pine tree, made it more blue, and that looks pretty good, I think. Now we're almost done building out the world, but it wouldn't be the Mushroom Kingdom without some more mushrooms. So I took a tree, edited that. The cool thing in the park is I actually have like really tall mushrooms that you can use for shade, and under those are like little bitty ones that you can actually sit on. I thought that was a cool little touch, and I did manage to fit it all within a 16 by 16 block. Up here at the top, I just drew in some very quick and easy clouds. That's actually the trick that I used to make the mountain look a little bit taller. All right, we got some good progress here. Now in the game, that top bar is actually for the name of the level that you've got selected. So I took the text from the original game, the font, and I just kind of spelled out Super Nintendo World up here. And you get 1 life because YOLO. Now let's get this thing animated. In the game itself, this is Mario's sprite. He only uses 2 sprites for his walking animation and when he's going sideways. So we're gonna be doing the same. First up is Yoshi. This is that sprite I worked on earlier, and this is like a little combination of their sprite from the game plus my, you know, spikes and stuff. And that's really all that you need. Let's see this in a 20 frame animation that's on a little loop with some moving clouds and a stomping thwomp. Look at that. Also, that little flashing panel right there is from the game. That shows what level you're at. So I put these little flashing panels at all of the little bad guys who have the keys that you're trying to get. All right, let's do that again, but with the Koopa. This is that sprite that we built earlier, and then I made a new one right here. It doesn't look like it's all that, but let's see what it looks like in motion. Yeah, he's moving. And also, I've got this piranha plant who only is slowly going up and down. And the reason for that is because in the park, that's another key guard, and that character is actually asleep until you wake it up. Let's go back to that final enemy, that Goomba, who I shrank earlier. I went ahead and lifted 1 foot, so it looks like he's in motion. For the second frame, I lifted the other foot instead, and I also put his little eyebrows down for some personality. Well, let's see that. Yeah, okay. He's just having a hard time balancing on this little thing. To actually get that log to look like it's rotating too, it's just a 4-frame loop. Each of these almost looks the same, but you see this little shadow in the corner? Bottom right. Now it's on the left, now it's along the top, and now it's along the side of the right. Along this part here, you can see I moved this light pixel in each frame. I would have done the same to the back as well if I were animating the whole thing, but the Goomba was in the way, so it didn't matter. But altogether, it looks like that. Let's add the playable character for this video, who is the new character introduced to the park, who I would absolutely die for. It's Chef Toad. I love Chef Toad. This character runs the Toadstool Cafe. There's actually like a digital screen with this character talking to you all about the love of cooking, which is just so delightful. Now, Toad isn't in Super Mario World, but he is in a lot of other games. So I took the sprites from the Game Boy Advance remake of Super Mario Bros. 3 and used that as the base. Brought in Mario so that I could get kind of the sizing right, and also I stole the colors from him. I reduced the color count as well so that he would more closely match the right style. And there we have it all together. You can actually just use the standing frames as the in-betweens when you're doing simple stuff like this. The important part, I think, is that on each of the frames where he's kind of got his legs apart, is that his head goes up 1 pixel and that helps him to look a little bit more lively. I'll show you what that looks like after we go ahead and do the map sprites as well. So we start out with Mario here, and then I started editing in that character. You'll notice the colors are way more saturated than they were on the other screen, and that's just the way they did it in the game, so that's what I'm doing too. And I had to keep shrinking them down to actually get them to fit within that 16 by 16 size, which I don't know, I think that it was fun, and I liked the way that this character turned out because he's just so freaking adorable. All together, well, let's just take a look at it. Ba-da-doo-ba-bow. And that's it! Now, if you're bummed that I didn't actually draw all these characters doing Mario Kart up in the Mario Kart ride, good news! I actually drew every single character from Mario Kart World in the original Super Mario Kart style. If you're interested in that, check out this video right over here and follow along for more pixel practice. Also, these little single tile pixels here were... I'm gonna cut all of that because that was boring.